and the upcoming July 9th release, Despicable Me, featuring the voice of Steve Carrell. Stick around. So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview. You know, MrMedia.com, MRMedia.com. Stop by and check it out. There are more than 500 archived celebrity interviews for your listening pleasure. The show is brought to you today by thepartyauthority.us. Planning a wedding, mitzvah, or corporate event? For any and all occasions, call the Party Authority nationwide at 1-800-DIAL-DJs. That's 1-800-342-5357, where one call does it all. So where was I before the commercial? Oh yeah, Mr. Media is recorded live from the new media capital of the world and home of the ever-cartoonish character Hulk Hogan, Tampa Bay, Florida. Well, this must be an exciting and, at the same time, nail-biting time to be screenwriters Cinco and Ken Daurio. They are the creative minds behind what is widely anticipated as one of the summer's great animated thrill rides, Despicable Me. It's a 3D film that turns the supervillain concept on its ear, first by making the bad guy the star of the movie, and then by making him sympathetic. Sort of. Despicable Me has a great many connections to greatness, starting with Steve Carrell as the Despicable One himself, Gru. He's just the icing on an aural cake, however, leading a cast that includes Jason Segel, Russell Brand, Will Arnett, Ken Jeong, Miranda Cosgrove, oh, screwed that up, didn't I? Kristen Wiig, Julie Andrews, Mindy Kaling, and Jack McBrayer from 30 Rock. Now, if you somehow missed the trailer for Despicable Me, check it out now.
Hey! Hey! Hey!
Oh.
Freeze ray! Freeze ray! Freeze ray!
For Gru, being a supervillain isn't easy.
We stole the Statue of Liberty, the small one from Las Vegas.
He has to control
Listen up, please.
an army of minions.
Dave?
He has to outsmart
What?
a ruthless archenemy.
Shrink ray? No! Oh, I hate that guy.
And he's about to inherit
Hello?
3 small problems.
You will not cry, or sneeze, or burp, or fart.
No annoying sounds.
Does this count as annoying?
Fire it now!
From Universal Pictures,
We are going to pull off the true crime of the century. We are going to steal the moon!
and Chris Meledandri, executive producer of Ice Age and Horton Hears a Who.
I shrink the moon. I grab the moon. I sit on the toilet. What?
You're funny.
Go!
By the time I'm done with Gru, he's gonna be begging for mercy. Go! We have to warn him, and fast!
So that's the exciting part.
This summer, just because he's a bad guy doesn't mean he's a bad guy.
3 little kittens started to yawn.
Now make them drink the milk.
Wow, this is garbage. You actually like this?
Despicable Me in eye-popping 3D.
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die.
All you gotta do is knock down that spaceship there.
Aww.
Oh, somebody's got a frowny face.
Okay, my turn. Knocked over!
It's so fluffy. Despicable Me.
Okay, as I was saying, that's the exciting part. The nail-biting part, that would be following on the heels of Toy Story 3, which was released a month ahead of Despicable Me and won both critical raves and box office gold. Will audiences excited by the story and technical achievements of Woody and Buzz be tempted to come back to the theaters for something in the same but different vein? Now, if you were going to take a chance in this genre, putting your money on Cinco Paul and Ken Daurio is probably a good bet. Their last film was Horton Hears a Who, based on the beloved children's story. It grossed a reported $300 million worldwide, and they're already at work on adapting another Dr. Seuss tale, The Lorax. Cinco Paul and Ken Daurio, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you, Mr. Media.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Thank you. That sounds like something straight out of Dr. Seuss right there. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we're very Seussian over here.
Yeah.
I get that. All right, guys, clear something up for me right off the top. Which one of you writes the characters' names, and which one writes the stage direction?
We will never reveal that secret. We can't. It's a trait. No, we switch off.
Yeah,
You know.
we alternate. On every other day, I do the character names. He does the directions.
All right. Well, all right, then let us see if I can get this out of you. Who writes the adjectives and who writes the verbs?
I'm much more of an adjective guy.
Yeah. I handle most of the verbs.
And I'm Ken. That's Ken, right? Yeah, that's Ken does the adjectives.
Ken is the adjectives, and
Yeah.
Cinco does the verbs. Okay, good. I'm glad we got that straight out. So, how did you?
I know
guys
people have been dying to know.
Yes.
I try to get right to the heart of the important stuff.
Yes.
Yes. Hard-hitting questions.
How did you guys connect? And really, along the lines of what I was just asking, how did you figure out that you were simpatico for writing screenplays? I mean, two guys working together doing something creative, whether it's two guys, two women, a guy and a girl, whatever, it's not easy.
No, it is not.
It's a nightmare. It is a nightmare, Bob. I think, basically we actually formed a band first, and we were playing in the band. And during that time, I was writing screenplays. This is Cinco, and Ken was directing music videos. And we just found that we had a very similar sense of humor. And so at one point, I said, we should write something together. And that worked out. That experience worked out so well that we've been writing together ever since. And that was in like '98, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, we were buddies first, and then decided to give this writing thing a go, and it worked out. And we still kind of like each other.
Yeah.
And so literally, I mean, how now? I mean, you have no way of knowing this. I mean, I make my living as a writer, mostly as a co-author with people who have CEOs or sports people, and just that is fraught with difficulty. How do you actually do the physical part of it? I mean, in terms of, is one of you more prone to be at the keyboard writing it down, or do you go back and forth? How does that part of it work?
Well, I tried it once where there was with another partner way back in my history, and where one of us, there were two writers and one keyboard, and it was a total nightmare. So it just doesn't work, couldn't make any progress. So what Ken and I do is we'll talk about, say, the next 30-page chunk, and we'll just hash it out and discuss all the scenes, and then we say, Ken, you take these couple scenes, I'll take these couple scenes. We divide up, write on our own, bring them all together, read them, and at that point the goal is, can you make the other guy laugh? And if you can make him laugh, then
we might have something.
Then we might have something.
And yeah, we know going in, Cinco has certain strengths and I have certain strengths, so we kind of know when in the outlining stage, oh, this is more of a Cinco scene, that one looks more like a scene for me. So that's kind of the way we approach it. Sometimes we'll mix it up. I'll try a Cinco scene, he'll try a Ken scene, but generally it works best when we stick to our stuff.
Ken does the action. I mean, he does everything, but I would say his specialty is the action and physical comedy. And if there's any scene that has any ounce of emotion in it, then that's for me. Ken's afraid of that sort of stuff.
A little bit, just a little.
So the technical part of it is less important than making sure that you're playing an episode of Can You Top This?
Yes. That is crucial, to try to outdo the other guy. And it's that sort of competitive nature. Ken and I are competitive about everything. But applying that to screenwriting, I think, has helped elevate our material a bit.
I would agree.
And also gotten into some fights, but beyond that, elevated.
So as we, we're anticipating the release of Despicable Me in a couple weeks. Can you look at that movie, each of you, and say, okay, that scene is a pure Ken moment, or that scene is a pure Cinco moment?
I think we can. I mean, there are a few of those here and there, but really, what happens is when we do bring our two scenes together, we'll both read through them together, and we do a lot of kind of rewriting on the fly, where if it's a Cinco scene, I'll pitch out jokes or ideas, and Cinco will do the same. So really, the final version of everything really kind of goes through both of us and is kind of changed a lot, right? To put a little bit of each of us in it. But absolutely, there's a couple of scenes I can think of that I remember reading Cinco's very first take on, and they're exactly the same today as they were on the first draft.
So it is amazing that as competitive as we are, however, often we'll see something and then we'll try to piece it back together. Who actually wrote that? Who came up with that? And a lot of times we can't even remember.
We do lose track.
Yeah.
But yeah, but there are a few of those that are still intact. Some of those perfect Cinco moments, a couple of Kens. It's nice.
Yeah.
Are there other screenwriting teams in Hollywood that you point to and go, now those guys have a partnership that really, really works, and we should, try to follow that career path, or just in terms of the creative path, or the way that you guys do it, is it unusual?
We, as writers, we're so isolated. We don't come in contact with many other screenwriters. There are certainly screenwriters teams whose work we admire, like the Coen brothers. I'd say, Billy Wilder and A.L. Diamond wrote Some Like It Hot and The Apartment, all those movies. But I don't know how other writers do it, if they separate scenes the way we do or not.
Yeah, technically, we don't really kind of emulate any duo or any partnership that we know of. We just kind of do our thing, and it seems to work, so we're not messing with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a very different question. Cinco is an unusual name, and I wondered, I mean, it seems like there's two voices here, but are you actually a character in Ken's imagination?
That question has come up. This is Cinco speaking. I am real. I know I sound like a fantastic figure, but I was born on Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of May, so that's why they called me Cinco. There you go.
I see.
The secret's out.
The secret's out. And Ken is real as well.
We'll accept that for now. Here's what I want to do. We need to take a break, but then I want to come back and talk specifically about Despicable Me and maybe a little about Horton and the Lorax. So let's take a quick break. This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to the Mr. Media interview with Ken Daurio and Cinco Paul, supposedly two separate people, but also screenwriters behind the new animated film Despicable Me. We'll be right back.
Hey, did you know that you can listen to the latest Mr. Media on your phone with the Stitcher app? Stitcher is smart radio for your smartphone. Mr. Media is on demand and on the go with Stitcher. Download Stitcher for your phone today. Get the free download at Stitcher.com. That's STITCHER.com.
This entire piece of music was played with only two instruments, a right hand and a left hand. Hands can do incredible things, but nothing compares to using them to help save a life with hands-only CPR. If an adult suddenly collapses, call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of their chest until help arrives. Hands-only CPR is recommended by the American Heart Association, and it's incredibly easy and effective. For more information on hands-only CPR and to make your own hand symphony track, visit handsonlycpr.org today. The power to help save a life is in your hands. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to the Mr. Media radio interview with Ken Daurio and Cinco Paul, screenwriters behind the new animated film Despicable Me. Guys, let's talk about the movie. What was the inspiration for this film about a bad guy with an uncomfortable soft side?
Well, originally we were pitched a story that an animator named Sergio Pablos had come up with, and it was basically just that basic idea. Let's center a movie around a villain, and these three little girls come into his life. And Ken and I instantly loved this idea.
We each have 3 kids, and we each know what it's like to try and take over the world with them constantly interrupting. So that was what really drew us to the project.
Yes. Yes, the idea of like trying to balance career and family is an issue we totally understand, and it even applies to supervillains, it turns out.
Apparently. Now, how did the story change as it went from concept to the screen?
Well, the story was a very bare bones idea, so we had to
it's
add
more of a concept than a story.
Yeah, and so we added the character of Vector. We added a competing villain because we wanted you need an antagonist. We created the characters for the girls. We gave Gru an evil mom. Like, why do people become villains? Because of their moms.
Yeah, and it was more of a jumping off point for us because it was just fun to dive into the world of a villain, which is always the best character in a movie, and just to really explore, like, what's his daily life like? What's it like when he goes to the supermarket or when he goes to get coffee in the morning, and just have fun with those things. It was a really fun project.
And what's it like having hundreds of minions to do your beck and call?
Oh, yes.
I like it a lot. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I like the concept a lot because the reality is that in movies like Batman and Iron Man, Spider-Man, a lot of the emphasis has been on the bad guy without making the bad guy the lead. And you guys have just made the bad guy the lead, just, skipped ahead.
Yeah, if you look at so many movies, the most interesting character is almost always the villain.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the Joker is far more interesting than Batman in The Dark Knight.
You want to know what Darth Vader's doing?
Yeah, Darth
more
Vader.
than Luke. I mean, come on.
So it is true. It was fun centering a movie around the villain. But, it was, as you said, it's kind of a challenge because he needs to be evil and despicable, but he also needs to be ultimately redeemable at the end.
And we really had fun with the idea of what are the kinds of things we would like to do if we were villains, if we, had the guts and the weaponry, frankly, to take care of some of these things, like the long lines. Who wouldn't like to freeze everybody in the long line so you could just skip ahead? Things like that. We had fun with.
Yes.
Which of the voice actors fit your imagination best for one of your characters, and which exceeded or improved upon your vision of the character?
Well, I'd say Steve Carrell. We worked with him on Horton Hears a Who, but in this he does something really amazing, which is his voice is almost unrecognizable as Steve Carrell. And we'd written Gru as this evil guy, and he was kind of fun, but once Steve came up with that voice, that weird Bela Lugosi Eastern European thing that he came up with, it was amazingly fun to start writing to that voice. Everything is funnier when it's said, and you can write for someone whose grasp of English isn't exactly perfect. So I'd say Carell was just amazing in this and was really fun, exceeded our expectations.
And as far as just really delivering, it was great getting these 3 little girls. Well, 2 little girls, and then you've got Miranda Cosgrove, who is a known actress, but it was just so fun working with these kids and getting those moments out of them that, Cinco and I both have lived with our own little kids, and they were just so real, and it was just really fun to work with them and try and just recreate those real life dad kind of moments.
Yeah. It's so fluffy! Like that.
And I got to say, you mentioned Miranda Cosgrove. I don't know why I've got a 13-year-old daughter. I don't know why I was having such a hard time with her name in the introduction. The D was missing in front of me. And I kept thinking, it's not Miranda. It's not Miranda. And I'm thinking, what is it? What is it? And
well, your daughter's going to give you a heck tonight.
Yeah, well, probably. I've seen enough episodes of iCarly and the show she did before that with the 2 brothers that you would think I would know that by heart. And
Drake and Josh.
Thank you. Drake and Josh. So, guys, in the last 2 weeks, Toy Story 3 has blown literally everything out of the water. Does that excite or unnerve you at all?
I think it's exciting because, you know, I feel very confident that we got a good movie, and that it's. I don't think Toy Story 3 is going to take anything away from it. But to me, it's exciting that people of all ages are going to these CG movies. You know, here's a G-rated movie that, like, you know, 20 to 24-year-old guys are going to in droves. And so it's exciting. And I think that, you know, we've had a great run with How to Train Your Dragon and Toy Story 3, and then hopefully we can just be a part of that.
Now, your first, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but your first big hit together was Horton Hears a Who, and I'm imagining that taking on the incomparable Dr. Seuss, Theodore Geisel, had to be intimidating.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I mean, growing up, Cinco knows this, my favorite book almost ever was Horton Hears a Who. So when we got the job to adapt it as a movie, it was like a dream come true. And that was a huge burden. I was very nervous about, you know, because other attempts had been made to make Dr. Seuss movies, maybe not so successful.
Cat in the Hat,
Mike Myers.
Yeah, and so there was a lot of pressure. We really wanted to do it right. And the first step in the right direction was animation, we felt. It was like, you gotta be in an animated world to really capture Dr. Seuss. You know, we had seen the 2 previous live action attempts, and it just wasn't working. So that was a great start, and it really made us feel comfortable in thinking, you know what, this is now the chance to really do one of these movies right, as a big budget, big movie. And then you get into the situation where it's now time to expand the book beyond what is there, because it's not enough to make a full movie. And that's where you start to get a little nervous, and you really want to make sure you're taking the right steps and not stepping too far outside of the Dr. Seuss world.
And I mean, I think that was the complaint about the 2 live movies versus Horton, was that there were a lot of complaints, I think, on the 2 live movies, that in stretching these rather thin books that everyone knows by heart into an 85 or 90-minute movie, that it didn't work, and probably because everything was live and they had to find ways to make it 3-dimensional, whereas in the animated, a very different story. It just seemed to work with what people expected a lot better. And I was going to ask you about that. If that isn't the toughest part, is taking these short books and then finding a way to, you know, pull so many minutes out of them.
Yeah, it's, you know, what we talk about a lot is sort of finding the spaces between the pages. You know, you don't want to mess with it too much, so you find, where did Dr. Seuss leave a few things open that we can use to expand? And that's always the challenge. But, you know, Ken and I have always been, because it's Ken's favorite book, Horton Hears a Who, and The Lorax actually is my favorite Seuss book. And so we're always been totally committed to being true to what the good doctor wrote and imagined.
Is the Geisel estate involved in vetting your scripts at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, one of I think our happiest moments in our career was when Mrs. Seuss, Audrey Geisel, saw Horton Hears a Who for the first time. And when it was over, she stood up and clapped, and she had tears actually rolling down her cheeks. She was really happy and really pleased with it. And so a big part of it is, you know, you want to make them happy. You want, and they have great input actually, as well as just sort of what Ted's intentions were here and there.
Absolutely. There's nothing like, you know, sitting in his house and she's telling stories about when he wrote the book. And and she's holding, you know, the first edition copy, pointing to images on the pages and telling the stories behind the scene. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah, she'll point. She'll say, "I got him to put those purples in there. That was my idea."
Unfortunately, we're just about out of time. Tell us, where are things on the Lorax? Is the script done? Is it in pre-production? Is it in production?
I guess the stage right now would still be considered pre-production, although, you know, we've made a lot of progress with character design and storyboards. One thing you find that in animation, the script is never really done. They can fiddle with it for about 2 or 3 years. So, you know, every time we think it's done, they beg to differ, and so we keep having to change it. But things
have been going really, really well. We've had lots of meetings with Audrey Geisel and with the Seuss Estate, and everything seems to be moving forward nicely.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I think we're scheduled to start layout and animation coming up pretty soon this summer. So that's exciting, and we can't talk about the voice talent yet, but we're really, really excited about that. So,
well,
go ahead.
We're just about to run out of time, literally. So I want to say, folks, you can see screenwriters Cinco Paul and Ken Dario's new animated film, Despicable Me, featuring the voice of Steve Carrell and many others, when it opens in theaters nationwide on July 9th. You can learn more about the movie by visiting its website, despicable.me. That's right, despicable.me. And you can order their last film, Horton Hears a Who, on DVD at mrmedia.com. Cinco and Ken, it was a lot of fun talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
Bob.
a lot.
It was great.
Good luck.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And folks, for more original interviews with your favorite actors, directors, and screenwriters, surf over to our main website, mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. And subscribe to Mr. Media on iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Just search Mr. Media Interviews from within iTunes and subscribe for free. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman.com. You can also follow me on Facebook or on Twitter. It's twitter.com/Andelman, or on Facebook, just search Mr. Media Interviews. Thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you sharing a piece of your day with Mr. Media. Thanks for listening, everybody.
What are you missing on chataboutit.com? It's time to voice your opinion. It's 877-242-8212. And let's chat.
The Backyard Party Radio Network. Coming this July.
On your computer at chataboutit.com.
Your classmate forwarding a picture from your profile to everyone he knows. A college student downloading all